Hi, welcome to Smart Programming. I'm Steven, a full-stack .NET software engineer with an emphasis on ASP.NET MVC as well as web services like Web API. I'm also a technical architect and software trainer. In this section, we will discuss about query in Dapper. Before continuing with the section, I highly recommend you to watch section 1 in this video series. There are the most commonly used methods to query the data from the database in Dapper. Query first, and query first to default. So when do we use them? Query is often used whenever SQL statement that we are trying to execute in the underlying database. If it returns more than a single record, then we use query method. Whereas, if the query returns a single value, that means a scalar value or a single record, and then we use query first or query first to default. For example, if the query returns total number of rows in a table, then we can use query first or query first to default. Or if we're trying to compute the average salary of an employee, it's still a single value, then we can use query first or query first to default. The difference between query first and query first to default, that is, query first to default returns the default value if the sequence contains no elements. Let's look at an example of using a quantity methods. Within SQL Server Northwide database, I got a product table and I wanted to display this data within a particular Windows Forms application. When this application runs and loads for the first time, I want to get data from the product database table into product object and then display all of the data in the grid view control on this window form. Okay, let's flip to Visual Studio. First of all, we will design a simple UI that allows us to retrieve product table from the Northwide database. Let's create product class based on products table structure. In the app config, if you look at this, I have a connection string, and this is the name of connection string and connection string itself. So we need to read the connection string and then create the connection object. Let's create a property to store the connection string. And then create an instance of SQL connection. And the best practice is basically to use using statement so that the connection will be automatically closed for us. We don't have to care much about closing the connection. To use Dapper, we do need to install packet Dapper, and the easiest way to do that through NuGet. Dapper as extension method onto RDB connection class, and one of them is query. It's a generic method that take the type of the object that's going to hold the results of your query. So we first need to prepare the command text, the command that we want to execute it. This one, let's copy that and paste it right here. Whenever this query get executed on the SQL Server database, what we are getting back? We're getting back multiple rows of data back. So whenever we get multiple rows of data back, we use query method to execute that command on the SQL Server database. So I will store that data into a collection of products. And void that data to grid view control. So obviously, if we run this now, we should see data in that grid view control loading off. Okay, it's worked. Let's say if I have a query like this query going to return number of rows in the product table. I'm just getting a single value. So if I want to execute a query like this, then I use query first. You might be thinking, can I use query to do that? We can use, but it's not efficient. If you just want a single value, there is no point to return a collection of object back. So that's why we use query first. Let's drag and drop a text box to display number of rows in product table. The single values returned from query first method can be any data type, because if I select the name of the employee who has the highest salary, then it's going to be a string, or I can get the date of birth of a person who had the highest salary, in which case it returns the date time. So we don't know the data type of that single value that gets returned is going to be. You as a developer who has to convert it to the appropriate type and use it correspondingly. So now we are expecting an integer data type. I'm going to typecast that to be a type integer. And then display that on Windows form. Okay, as you can see here, it's worked. Within the product table in SQL Server, I got the maximum ID of product ID is 77. If I have the query like this query is going to return the sequence containing no element. I'm expecting the first product satisfying this condition to be returned if I execute the query like this, but the result contains no elements. Let's flip to Visual Studio. I'm going to write a method taking in product ID as parameter. Let's copy that and paste it right here. To parse the parameter in the command text, we use dynamic parameters. The first parameter is the parameter name. And the second one is value. And you can pass in the parameter type if you want. Otherwise, we don't need, because the parameter type is automatically based on their type of parameter value. There is the other way around to pass parameter in the SQL command, is to pass parameter directly in query function as parameters. So let's call this method. So if we try to execute this method with product ID is 75, and it's okay. But with product ID is 77, we are getting an exception like this. SQL contain no elements. Let's try it again with query first story fruit. And place a breakpoint in this line. Let's run it again. It return none instead of throwing out an exception. The difference between query first and query first story fruit, which are whenever query first execute to query and return the first result. If there is no element containing in the return result, then it will throw out an exception. By contrast, query first story fruit will return a default value if the sequence contains no elements. Let's say if I select the name of the employee who has the highest salary, then it's going to be a string and its default value is known, or number of frozen products table, then it's going to be an integer and default value is 0. In that case, it's product and default value is known. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and have a great day. See you in my upcoming video series. Bye bye.